Once again. This is Nuance, and we'll be speaking of the execution currently happening, it seems, in Missouri. Of course, I'm Mike Scala, joined as always by Jay Carter, also known as Timid, the hip hop artist in the chair of BLM Tokyo. What's going on, Jay?
Uh, you know, um, Waking up to this nonsense, uh, a little bit of cold morning, which is ridiculous. Some people out here talking about, yeah, finally it's calming down. And I think, you know what? You people can kiss my butt because I don't want summer to be over yet.
Yeah. It's gone by quick. September in particular, it seems, has zoomed by.
Right. As you say that while we're on Zoom.
Yeah.
So also I just printed out my stuff. I got my email yesterday and printed out my ballot. So I've got to get to the post office today and mail off my absentee voter ballot.
Okay.
So yeah, handling that civic duty.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're still a U.S. citizen, obviously, right? So you vote
Of
as a
course,
voter. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not giving that up. I know some people who have.
Right, right. Do people often get dual citizenship so they can vote in Japanese elections, or how does that work?
No, you can't have dual citizenship in Japan.
Gotcha.
So the US allows dual citizenship, but Japan doesn't. So for example, for people who are born of parents from Japan and from another country, the kid can have kind of a dual citizenship until they turn 18, and then they have to choose
Hmm.
according to Japanese law.
Right. And do you know about birthright citizenship or establishing citizenship? Because the rules are different in different countries. I know people in the US tend to think of it like, oh, well, if you're born here, you could be a citizen, but other countries don't always look at it that way. Some require blood lineage and so forth.
Right. There is, if I'm, there is birthright citizenship in Japan. So if you're one of the father or the mother is a citizen at the time of birth, then you can get citizenship. Um, so like I said, by 18, if you're from mixed countries, then you have to choose which one you want.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
so
So
yeah, some countries don't.
as we speak here, I'm keeping my eye on the Mets game. I'm a diehard Mets fan, but this should show you how dedicated I am to nuance because this is
Uh-oh.
probably the most important game of the year. It just started with the second inning, no score. If the Mets win two out of three of the series, they're in the playoffs. And so I'm still doing nuance, but I'm keeping the game on mute in the background. So if you hear me like yell or something, you'll know why.
Okay, okay. All right.
This is a big one. Mets and the Braves.
Really?
Yeah.
Mets and Braves, huh? Okay, all right.
Yeah. The Mets have been the best team in baseball since the summer began, and they're trying to make that last minute push into the playoffs.
Okay. All right. I didn't figure you for that kind of a fan where you would definitely not miss the games and that type of thing.
Only baseball and only the Mets. That's really the only sport I really get into like
Okay.
that. Other, I really don't. If a New York team is in the playoffs or the Giants go to the Super Bowl, I'll watch the game and cheer and that kind of stuff. But I'm not watching every week like some people are.
Right, right, right. Okay. True, true, true. I
Um,
hear that.
Trying to figure out. Believe it or not, I don't think I've ever gone live on Instagram. I'm trying to figure out how to do that right now. Drop down. No, not. Is it on your
Now, see, here's
profile?
the thing.
Can I
You
not
see
do
what
it?
you see what you're having, the issue you're having here? Like it's a few clicks and everything, right?
Yeah,
So recently there was the controversy that happened with what's his name?
I found it.
He has a
Okay.
popular show. He was from ESPN, I think,
Okay.
on Club Shay Shay.
That
You
is
know,
familiar to me. Is that the
right.
former athlete?
Yes, he's a former athlete. Is
Yes.
Shannon Sharp? Shannon Sharp was
Yes, exactly. That was one at the beginning of the year. He had that controversial Cat Williams interview, right?
right.
Yes.
Yes, and he also used to host a show. I think it was on maybe it was ESPN or one of those channels with Skip Bayless, and they would talk about sports. And then there was a controversy, and so he left or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But he's had his own show now, Club Shay Shay, very popular. And about 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, he was live on Instagram
Hmm.
and
On Instagram.
apparently having sex in the background.
What?
People could hear the live stream. He was having
No,
sex.
wait. Was this done intentionally? Did he know what he was doing? Did he not realize he was live? And what was the point?
Well, that's the thing. He's saying he didn't realize that his phone went on live, that he was
Wow.
live on Facebook on Instagram. Um, he said he
Crazy.
must have accidentally hit the button, right? So no
I
one
didn't
could see
accidentally hit this
him. They
button.
were
What's
just
up, John? What's up, Ford Angel? I'm watching you guys on there.
so that he was saying that it was an accident and he went on live on accident.
uh,
But as you just saw, it's
right.
not, you can't accidentally hit one button and go live.
Right. What's up, Joe? I see Joe joining us. Yeah, so that's the thing. It did take a few different clicks to get this going live. And so, all
Right.
right, so I think you might have cracked the case right there, unless someone was messing with him. Or it was
Well,
a mistake stuff.
that's what everyone is
Yeah.
saying. Like they're calling
Yeah.
BS on this,
Okay.
saying like you couldn't see him having sex. It was more you could hear in the background, you could hear
Yeah.
the moaning and talking and whatnot.
You know what? This is starting to sound like this was done on purpose to generate this kind of discussion. Because look, he's getting podcast discussions out of it and everything.
But okay, and it goes further though. So he came on, he was like, I'm sorry, this is what happened. I think it was it was a mistake. I must have accidentally hit the button or whatever. But then he leaned into it to making a joke about it, talking about, because he's an older guy and he's like, look, I get it in. And he started talking about the I guess some enhancement things that he takes. And it seemed like he was marketing those pills or
Oh,
whatever.
okay. So it probably was done on purpose.
So people are speculating that this was just a marketing ploy.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, your phone
And
doesn't just go live, right? Your Instagram doesn't go live for nothing.
right.
Someone had
It
to,
doesn't.
yeah, yeah.
Right,
Someone
right,
had to do that deliberately. How do you? It wasn't easy for me to just find it. I had to scroll to different menus and all. I was like, where is it? I
right.
never did this before.
Yeah, and it takes more than one click.
Right.
Like
Because
first of
once you pull
all,
up the live screen, then you guys set it up and you press the button in the middle to go to start it and everything. Yeah.
yeah, and first of all, you have to have Instagram up.
Right.
Like why
I
are
mean, but
you
that's
holding your
plausible. It's
phone?
plausible that someone might have Instagram up and they left it on. But how do you get to those other clicks?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I'm buying that one. I mean, you hear about the butt dial. I don't know about the live, the butt live. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
plus, it wasn't even with him. He was in a different room. You said, right? So who's pressing these buttons?
No, I think it was in the same room.
Oh, but the phone wasn't on him, right?
It wasn't aimed at him. So
Right.
I didn't see
It
the
wasn't
video.
like in his pocket or something like that. Like it was apart from him.
It was it seemed like it might have been apart from him. I don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not buying that.
Yeah, I'm not sure I buy it either. I mean, butt dial takes, well, I guess it can be one click. So yeah. So anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, all right. So you brought up buying or not buying. What about this? Do you buy Kamala's recent shift to the right on certain issues?
you talking about like the guns and the
Fracking was one of them.
um I don't know. Like I wonder if like the gun thing, I didn't really think anything of that. Right? So she said that if someone came into her house, they're getting shot.
Right. I want to talk about that a little bit though, because I understand the idea of someone breaks into your house and you're legitimately afraid for your life. Maybe they have a gun, maybe they're threatening you, whatever. But to make that blanket statement, to me, it seems like that's perhaps pandering to a certain type of voter who has that mentality. Not so much the mentality of I'm going to defend myself, but the mentality of basically I'm going to defend my property or I'm going to defend my ego and my pride, right? Like you step on my property, you're getting shot. Not I'm going to shoot you to defend myself because I'm afraid because I think you're going to kill me. But I'm just looking out, like I'm just like a macho guy. I'm just going to shoot anyone on my property because you do see that mentality. I think maybe there's a subtle difference there because I think maybe a little bit built into that is they're afraid somebody might become a danger, might be a threat, and they're going to shoot them before that even escalates to that point. I think that's kind of baked into that subtly, but there's still a bit of a difference, I think, in the way that that's expressed and believed philosophically. Because me personally, again, I get the idea of self-defense. Yeah, you want to defend your life if your life is in danger. But I wouldn't say anyone who comes to my house is getting shot. I mean, to me, that's a little bit too extreme. Now, again, if I'm afraid for my life, I get it. You use deadly force when it's justified to defend your life or the life of others, right? But to make that blanket assertion. It's like, to me, it's a little stereotypical, right? It's like you see the old shows or movies about someone on a farm, like, you wander on to the wrong property and the guy comes out in overalls with a rifle pointing, like, get off my porch, that kind of thing, right? It's like not even so much because they think that you're going to kill them, but they just think that they're justified to shoot anyone on their property and they almost want to. It's like an excuse to shoot somebody.
I didn't take it that way from her saying that. I think it was just a common saying that people would say. And you say that. And it's part of that. You're in my house. It's not so much defending my property and that thing. It is like you're in my space. It's a danger. I'm protecting myself and my family. Yeah, you come in here, you're getting shot.
Well,
That's just very common. I didn't, yeah. I didn't, to me, I didn't look at it any different.
maybe because you grew up in the South or spent a lot of time in the South. I don't know, but that's an interesting question then to ask. Do you think that someone being on your property,
But not on your property, in your house. She
in your
said
house in
in.
particular, so someone being in your house always creates reasonable suspicion that your life is in danger, just by virtue
Someone
of them
broke
being
in?
there? Oh yeah, no other facts, right? You don't see them with the gun. They don't look dangerous or threatening. They're not saying anything. Like just the fact that they're there, does that automatically create a suspicion that they're there to kill you?
Um, that's a dangerous situation. Maybe that they're there to kill you, but I think it's a reasonable suspicion to have.
Automatically. Okay.
Automatically,
Well, because
absolutely.
that, right, because this plays into what the legal standard becomes, right? That means if you were to kill them and claim self-defense, you have to show that it's subjectively and objectively, in response to a fear that your life was in danger. And so you're
I think
saying that basically that threshold will be met automatically by virtue of them breaking into your house, regardless of any other circumstances that might exist.
I think it's a reasonable assumption because you don't know what they're there for. They could be there for to kill you. They could be there because they're in a mistaken house. They thought it was their house. They broke in. They had
Mm-hmm.
to climb the window, something like that. I don't know. But from your side, can you take that chance that they're not there to kill you?
It depends. I think, isn't it pretty fact dependent? What if it's someone who is, I don't know,
You don't
clearly
have the
on
time to get the
drugs?
facts, right? It's right there. You come around the corner in your house. There is a stranger in your house. The
Okay,
door
what if they
wasn't
start
open.
talking? But what if they say, "Excuse me, I'm really sorry. I'm in a bind right now. I need money for the train or something like that, or something that's crazy because they broke into your house." But maybe you start thinking, "Oh, did I lock the door? How easy were they able to get in?" I don't know, but they don't present themselves as a threat once you discover them.
Well, you've got to get to that point though. Your
They just
initial
start.
reaction.
Okay, but what if under this hypothetical, as soon as you see them, they start talking to you in a very calm manner? Excuse me, I'm really sorry to bother you, but I need sugar for my recipe or something like that. And you think, whoa, how'd you get in here? Is that, do you automatically have justification to shoot them on site, or is it like, no, they're not presenting as a threat here?
I think you have the right to that suspicion
Hmm.
off the bat. Now, whether you go through with it, that's a little bit of a different story. I'm
Yeah.
because they could be faking that whole story
Sure,
about
should be
sugar to lower your defenses
right.
so they can get
But
the upper hand or
okay,
whatever.
but also
But
anyone could be doing that. Anyone on the street also, if they're asking you for $1, they could be faking that. They're trying to rob you. They're trying to beat you with a brick. You don't know.
and that's one of the reasons they say, as far as, don't pull out money in
Right.
front of people to give it to them because this could be a ploy.
Right.
The difference is they're in your home now. This is
Sure.
a very
Sure.
big distinction, I think. Would I like to think that we can take that moment to figure out what they're there for? Absolutely. I mean, they could have mental issues. They could have accidentally wandered in. Maybe you left the door open. Who knows?
Right. Or what if, okay, here's another example. What if they're teenagers and they're kind of giggling and you can hear them talking and they're like, oh, we're going to, I don't know, we're going to, let's say, like, we know they're not home. We're just going to like search their cabinets for liquor bottles or see if they have cigarettes laying around. And like, basically you can tell from their conversation that they're just mischievous kids and they're not really a threat.
Right. But absolutely. So I wouldn't say come out shooting, but you could come out with that thing on you.
Right, but
just in
I'm
case.
trying to get to the bottom of, I guess, is it a defense in court that should hold up all the time, right? If the defense attorney, or let's say you are put on trial for it, right? You shoot them and you get put on trial for murder, right? And your defense attorney says, well, they were in my client's home, and so they per se automatically pose a threat such that shooting them was justified because they were in fear for their life. Anyone would be, would that be it, or should the other attorney, in this case, the prosecutor, have an ability to say, hold up. They were in their house. Yes, it was maybe a burglary or a breaking and entering scenario, but the other facts present show that deadly force was not justified because a reasonable person would not be in fear for their life given these particular set of facts. I'm wondering if it should be automatically case closed or if it should be fact dependent.
It makes me wonder, what are those reasonable facts that you
I just laid out. I just laid them out in this case. The person admits they came in, they were giggling. They said, "I know Johnny's not home, and he's on vacation." Like, oh, maybe they didn't realize that he's back early from vacation. They had the calendar wrong, whatever. But they're like, Johnny's on vacation. He won't be back till next week. While he's away, we're gonna let's try to grab some stuff out the cabinet.
Right. So I think there are a couple of things to consider there. Is this in the middle of the day? Is this in the middle of night?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
another.
okay. So you're saying it is fact sensitive then. It isn't an automatically trump card I win.
Well, I think in that case there can be different things that influence how far you think you need to go. So if it's in the middle of the night and you're all alone,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a heightened awareness there, a heightened sense of danger there. If it's in the middle of the day, the sun is out, it's bright, um, you can clearly see things. Maybe there's a less sense there, but they're still in your home and
Mm-hmm.
you don't know their intent.
Okay, but so it does sound like you're saying it depends on facts, though. It isn't automatic. Anyone automatically in your home is automatically,
Maybe not automatic, but
but you're saying it basically leans heavily in that direction.
I think you have that reasonable.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's fair. I think that's a fair assumption. I think I would actually agree with that. That the fact that they're in your home does start, making us climb the ladder, right, of reasonable fear. Maybe it doesn't automatically get you to that finish line, but that is like a big first step in that direction, right? I mean, here's another example. What if they run into your house because they're trying to escape someone else who's chasing them? What if someone is chasing them through the neighborhood with a gun or a knife? And they're not going to do it. Boom, help, help, help. And they kick the door down, like push the way to the door somehow. And they're like, sir, please help me. I'm being chased. Please help me. Please help me. At that point, could you just shoot them because they're in your house?
No,
Okay.
but you tell them to get out because I don't want you to bring that trouble to
Right.
me.
Right. But see, here's the thing. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, because I do believe there are different states with different rules on this. Like in New
Absolutely.
York, I do think that it is fact determinant. I don't think that it's an automatic open and shut case. I think you would look at all these things. You look at the totality of the picture here. I think in other cases, Florida might be an example. They have things like the castle doctrine, where basically anyone in your home can get it. And that's
Right.
the ultimate defense. They broke into my house. They weren't allowed to be there. I shot them. Case closed. We go home. It was for lunch. You know what I mean? There's nothing to even talk about.
Right.
So I wonder if there should be more flexibility there. I think maybe New York does it better in that regard.
I think I think one thing that we haven't brought up that is very important is that, and I've thought about this before, is that the prevalence of guns in the
Mm-hmm.
United States.
Mm-hmm.
So the possibility that they've come in with
Mm-hmm.
a firearm is very high.
Right,
So if the
right,
same scenario, for example, happened here in Japan,
right, right.
my reaction would probably be less one of
Fear.
like fear for my life
Right, right.
and
Or at
more
least
one to
that you would
think,
have more time, right? Because with a gun, you
right,
have more time to react. If they
right,
have a baseball bat or something like that, well, then they got to get close to you first. You can lock yourself in a room
right.
and do different things. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that plays a big factor into whether or not right off the bat you're thinking this could be a life or death situation.
Does it matter then what state you're in or even what locale you're in within a state? But if you're in an area that doesn't have as many guns or crime is not up,
No, I don't think that matters because you still have the same right to bear arms across the United States, anyone could have a gun at any time.
Right, right. Well, and the other thing that we haven't really gotten into with this is we were focusing on if they come into your home, fine. But what if they're just in your backyard? What if they're on your front porch? What if they're on your property? I think there are some states that will consider that all the same, that they're an illegal trespasser. You have a right to consider them dangerous and kill them.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I think that's because you still have your protection at that point, right? They're not invading, they're on the property, but I don't take that as
Yeah.
your personal space in that regard. You know what I mean? Like in
Right.
the home, behind the doors and windows have been closed. Even if they haven't been closed, even if the door was wide open, you still have no reason to cross that threshold.
Yeah.
So yeah, on the property, I think that's too
Shout out to the people on Instagram Live. I see Vish Mahadio is here. I see Davon, John, Castro. So let us know what you think if you're watching on Instagram Live as well. We're asking about whether you believe people should automatically have the right to kill trespassers in their home, essentially, right? And this is really a jump off from the Kamala Harris statement, which I guess we'll get back into in a few minutes here, saying that she would shoot an intruder in her house. We're trying to figure out, is that pandering to a certain demographic? Is that a reasonable thing to say? Is it very sensitive to the facts at play? Or does it not matter what the facts are? Can we just assume that someone in your house is there to kill you and you have every right to use force? Because getting back to the original point about this kind of coming off as pandering a bit, there are people who kind of, I think, take that philosophy and they're not only talking about intruders in their house. They'll do things like, shoot the neighbor's dog if it crosses the backyard, the line, jumps over the fence or gets on that. And they're like, well, they were on my property. I had every right to shoot them. Like, they're just people who have that mentality. Like, you're on my property. I'm going to shoot you. And I've got the law says I can do it. Not, it's almost like they're giddy about the idea.
Itching to do it.
Yeah. They're just so happy that they have an excuse to kill someone or something. It seems like when you say, you come in my house, I'm going to kill you. Like, I get it. It's a complicated issue in some respects, but depending on how it's presented, and I guess the context that it's presented, it can come off as pandering to that type of individual who has that philosophy.
I didn't think so. Because I didn't get the sense that this was her idea of like she's itching to shoot someone.
Right.
Like
No,
I said,
I don't think she is either. Yeah, I don't think she is either. I think it actually sounded out of character for her, which is why it didn't come off as very genuine. To me, it sounded more like, again, put this in the context of her being for fracking all of a sudden. There's other things. She is running her general election campaign when she didn't have a primary campaign, so this is her campaign, right? She's running her campaign as, I wouldn't say a conservative, but certainly not a progressive Democrat, right? She is really moving to the right on her issues. I mean, certainly to the right of where Biden was in 2020, for example. Maybe that's a calculation she's making that, well, listen, Democrats are going to vote for me anyway. They all hate Trump. I'm getting the left. They're not going to vote for Trump. So let me try to reach out and erode to some Trump voters or some middle moderate voters or whatever, right? To show that I'm not so scared. Maybe it's partly because she is a woman of color. And Obama kind of did this maybe in a little bit of a different way, but she's trying to basically put people at ease and think, like, oh, they shouldn't be so afraid to vote for her because I'm not so other. I'm really like you. I'll also shoot someone who comes to my house. Now I'm for fracking too. I think she's taking stances and saying things that are presenting herself in a light that makes her seem a little bit more palatable to moderate / white, maybe even conservative leaning voters.
I think I would be more apt to believe that of the fracking issue, but the point of people come in your house, I'm going to shoot them. I don't think so because, like I said, it's a very common saying, a very common.
Is that mostly a common saying amongst more right-leaning people? I don't really see people on the left saying it. Most people, no. Just the fact that she said she has a gun, by the way, that's big, right? You don't often hear that from Democratic politicians. Progressives don't usually say that.
But here's the thing.
They say we don't want so many guns around.
No, I think that's a
misnomer.
Not a misnomer. Maybe I think it's a misunderstanding. I think Democrats have guns too. We know this. The difference is that Democrats don't normally talk about it like that they're carrying it or they have them.
She is talking about it like that though. She says she's got a gun. Come to my house, I'm going to kill you.
So I think
That doesn't sound like a Democratic talking point.
I think it's just normal. I think it's common in the United States. There are Democrats, there are
Okay,
Republicans,
but
there
you
are
just said that
independents.
that's not something Democrats normally do or
They
say or
don't do it in
talk
their
about.
talking points.
But she is
Right.
talking about it that way. So that makes it different. That makes it a departure from how Democrats usually talk, right? And present
Right. But it could just be
their
her.
points.
Like
Okay.
that's just who she is. We don't know a lot about her still,
Right.
right? And
Right.
and we got to remember she's also comes from a law enforcement background where there's
True.
this right to protect yourself, this whole type
Yeah.
of thing. So
Yeah.
so this could be just very normal. Plus, again, I've heard constantly have any conversation with anybody anywhere. In New York, I bet you go on the street and you ask people, someone come to your house, you're gonna shoot them. You're gonna get most people are gonna be like, yeah, I'm shooting them. They're coming to
No.
my house.
Well,
You
no.
need
You
to
know
get you
why?
on the street. Get
No.
you on the street. The
We'll
microphone.
try it. But here's the thing: most people in New York City will tell you they don't own a gun.
That's not the point.
It is the point. They're not going to shoot you if they don't have a gun.
No, but would they if they
If they
did?
had a gun,
If someone came into your house, you
okay. But
pop it off?
if you ask most people on the street in New York City, right? Most people, would you shoot someone if they came in your house? The most common answer you're going to get is, I don't have a gun.
Yeah, but would you if you
If you
had
had a
one
gun,
in the house,
now
if
you're putting
someone broke into
hypotheticals in
your
this
house, are
situation.
you shooting them? So I think it's very,
Hold
I
on a
think
second. Mets, what's going on? Oh, it's the Braves. Okay, never mind. Keep talking.
I think it's a very common talk, a very common point, a very common saying. Whether or not you actually do it, a lot of people do say, "Listen, yeah, I'm gonna shoot them. Yeah, they come in my house, they're getting shot." Very common. I don't think it was a a pandering. I think it was more her trying to have some sort of personality because she's kind of stiff, but
Right.
not
But
pandering,
isn't that,
not like
yeah,
pandering to
but
gun people,
that's kind of pandering in a sense,
but
right?
not to gun people. I think it's
Hmm.
like I'm a regular person type of
Gotcha.
thing, type of feel. That's what I got from it. Now the fracking, that's that's not something that commonly that people talk about,
Right.
right? Like that's a
Right,
policy that you have to talk.
but they do more in those parts of the country, right? You go to Western Pennsylvania, that
Right.
probably is, especially when you have people working in that field, right? In energy, they're probably talking about that. They're probably concerned that maybe the president will take those jobs away or whatever.
Sure. Sure. And I think that is more of a political stance than the one of if someone comes to my house, I'm gonna shoot them.
Mhm.
To me, that's more of a political stance, the fracking one.
Right.
So I would be more apt to believe that that was more
I think,
directly
yeah.
pandering to.
Chat, what do you think? I see Vishnu says true, but I'm not exactly sure what he said true about. So maybe a little bit more more meat on that. I'm just curious to
Is
see.
Vishnu, if someone breaks into Vishnu's house, is he
Yeah.
popping caps
How
or
do you answer
what?
that question, Vish? Yeah, I'm really curious because I'm listening to this as a New Yorker, right? And
Right.
so to a New Yorker's ear, it comes off like, what are you talking about? Someone breaks in the. To me, that sounds like something someone from Texas would say, not something a New Yorker would say as much. You know what I mean? In New York, it would be like, yeah, okay, I'll defend myself if my life is in danger, but you don't have that like beat in the chest. You come by my property, I'm going to kill you, boy. We don't really
Come
talk like
on.
that.
Come
Hmm?
on.
It's not. It's not that mentality here. We don't have that mentality here.
Go down to Flatbush, go down to Brooklyn, go down to Bronx. You come in my house? Yeah, I'm shooting you, son. Like, come on.
Nah, not on site.
Yes.
Not on site. It's
Oh, we need word on the street. We need
yeah,
someone to go on the street.
yeah. We're saying here automatically, right? We're not saying they're coming in with a gun threatening to kill you. Basically anyone in your house, you're automatically going to shoot them for being in your house.
I think we have to be specific here. If they would
Because I will
if
use a
they would say
cutlass.
that, would they say it? The difference is
It-
would they say I would shoot them, or
and
is
if
different
they were running
from
for president, would they say that's also, I think, an important piece of the puzzle here, right? She's running for president saying that. So her words are at least supposed to be more measured.
to me, I think it was I don't think it was a bad thing,
Right.
right?
I don't think it's bad necessarily.
Because
I think it's
I
noteworthy.
think it's out of character for a Democratic candidate.
Yeah.
Absolutely. However, I think it can help to correct this conversation that all Democrats are against guns because it's just not true.
Right.
There are Democrats that are for the right to bear arms. The difference is that the right keeps trying to twist is that they want responsible background checks. That doesn't say we want to get rid of guns. Then, there are a lot that are gun owners, and that never they never hear that point. They only hear that, oh, you want background checks? That means you want to get rid of guns. Like, no, we got guns.
Right, right, right.
You know, we believe in the Constitution. It's
But
an
see,
American
that's a
country.
different conversation, though. And that's a much more nuanced, policy-driven conversation than you come
But
to my
I
house
think,
and shoot you. You know what I mean? To me, that just comes off as a little bit more pandering.
I think it's that way because a lot of Democrats don't really talk about that they're gun owners as well,
Hmm.
right? I mean, think about the NRA membership is mostly conservative Republicans,
Well, is that
because of
true? I
their
mean, I know that
extreme
that's a
view.
stereotype, but if you were to go
This
down
is
the
right.
list, do you think that would be
Absolutely.
true? I don't know.
That's true, right? I think it's because the NRA presents like this extreme view
Right.
instead of just being a
Yeah.
gun organization.
Certainly the lobbying arm of it does.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I think there's a positive to what she said. I think it was a little funny, a little tongue in cheek, but
Mhm.
also just like, yeah, we're not anti-gun over here. Like
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
chill out on
I mean, but the thing is this, I don't know. I think there are more subtleties that may be needed. For me, I would have been more comfortable with it if she would have even added something like, if necessary. Like, I got a gun and I'll use it to protect myself if I have to. Right. But not like, you come in my house, I'm going to shoot you. Because that's something you hear
that.
from conservatives. To me, that sounds like a right wing talking point. Like, your dog is in my yard, I'm going to kill the dog. That's how that comes off to me. Like, just gun
Yeah,
happy,
but the way she
happy,
said
wild,
it
wild
though,
west. Uh,
you got to take into account the way she said it, right?
that's how
This
it
was,
came off, the way she said it to me.
yeah, it wasn't that serious. It wasn't
To me,
that
I thought it was
extreme.
because of the way that it was worded, the way that it was put.
Yeah, the delivery to me was just very common, especially you would see in, I'll say to me, you'll see in Black communities.
It's a
And
regional disconnect. I think you see that more in the South, to be honest with you.
you could, but yeah, I didn't take it as that serious. Like
You do need a
when she,
word on the street. What's up? I see Deb in the chat. I see, does Dominique, is that Dominique? Uh, Vishnu said, I will use a cutlass. Is that a knife, by the way? A cutlass? What's a cutlass? I don't even know.
a cutlass is a car.
Yeah, I know that, but I think he meant some kind of weapon to defend himself. Because we were talking
Um,
about people don't have guns in New York.
yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I
I'm
do
not
like
a
the idea, by the way, of a word on the street, right? That would be nice. And also to do it in different states. Like, let's do a New York version, let's do a Texas version, and compare and contrast. I do think the answers will skew a little bit differently. I really do.
true, true, true. All right.
All
Well,
right.
we'll
Well,
see.
interesting conversation there. Have we gotten an update on this Marcellus Williams case? Because we heard that the execution was scheduled for about 7 p.m., I believe, Eastern time, right? So it would have been over an hour ago now.
Well,
Can we Google? My devices are tied up. I got the game here. It looks like the Braves are winning. Unfortunately, I got the laptop, the webcam running the podcast. I got the Instagram live going on the cell phone. So,
I'm looking here. I did see his final words were posted.
hmm,
He signed the last word statement, and his last statement was all praise be to Allah in every situation.
okay.
And that was his
Islam. So, I guess to get into the case a little bit, I started seeing TikToks. And I know we had touched on this. This will probably lead into our poll next, but I was seeing TikToks about this case. And you saw a lot of people calling on people to send letters to the governor and the attorney general of Missouri to stop the execution. You also had a lot of people saying that this person has been proven innocent by DNA evidence. And I was doing some digging on that. I was not able to verify that. I did see that there was some, I guess, muddying of the waters here. It looked like perhaps the knife that was used in the case was handled by the prosecutor's office without gloves. And some of their DNA apparently got on the weapon. And so that was obviously a problem. But I didn't see that DNA proved his innocence. I did see people on TikTok saying that. And I think there's a concern, we mentioned that last week, about misinformation spreading and the
yeah.
possibility some of it is even used as propaganda, right? You don't know to what extent China, for example, might be pushing some of these messages to Americans to try to get to, manipulate their behaviors and their thoughts or whatever. So it did remind me of that. Again, I don't know with any certainty if that's happening here. But when I started seeing these TikToks pop up, it did remind me of that discussion we had last week about that, especially given the fact that some of the things that they were saying, I wasn't able to verify. I'm like, I don't even know if this is really true, what they're saying, you know?
Right. What I think
Yeah.
what's important here is the parties that wanted his execution to be stopped. So the
The Innocence
prosecutor,
Project. Yeah.
but even prosecutors
Right.
have raised
Right.
concern. The
Well, that's a
prosecuting
different
office,
discussion. Yes. Yes. I was just making a point that I didn't see that his innocence was proven. Or DNA showed that he definitely didn't do it. I haven't seen that. I've seen people
I
say
think there
that on
was
TikTok, but I never
from
saw
the
that
article
anywhere. Have there been any credible articles or anything?
from the article that I read from the Guardian, it said that the prosecutors had raised concern about the lack of DNA
Right.
evidence.
Right. That's what I had seen. That I guess there was DNA evidence, but it wasn't really reliable because it had the prosecutor's fingerprints on it. Basically the prosecutor's DNA was mixed in with it, and so they said that that it's not the best evidence to use. I haven't seen DNA evidence proving his innocence, but
Right.
all right, put
But
it
the lack of is what they're questioning.
right, right, and I think there was maybe a last minute request for a further evidentiary hearing on that. And I know appeals are still in process even now, as it looks like this execution is going forward or might have gone forward. So
Yeah.
you raise a point here that the original prosecutor, I think even the judge, right, the victim's family, they all wanted the sentence to change from the death penalty to life imprisonment. And apparently that deal was reached. They were all in agreement of it. But then you have political actors come in, the attorney general of Missouri and the governor of Missouri, right? Both Republicans who
Right.
apparently, from what I'm seeing, put pressure on the Missouri Supreme Court, which is their highest court, to stop this and to continue on with the execution.
Right. Um, so yeah, what I'm seeing here, I've only seen a minor report that says that it went through, but I didn't see any credible sources yet.
A minor report said that the execution went through.
Yeah, it's from something called Scripps News.
Okay. I've seen some of their stuff before, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I wouldn't count them credible. I don't know enough of them, so I'm looking for like
Yeah.
a guard
Yeah.
Axios,
Mainstream.
and
Yeah.
so far, none of them has said that it's happened yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well, I
I
always
think
get a bad feeling from these cases, really from any death penalty case. In New
yeah,
York, we don't have it anymore at the state level, but this is in Missouri, right? Obviously, other states in some cases still do it, and I never liked the way it feels. Remember,
no,
my dad never really got too political with me, but the one political position I can remember him expressing to me was, if it's illegal for man to kill, it should be illegal for the state to kill. And
right.
I feel that way too. I don't think killing should be appropriate. Should be an appropriate penalty.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it should be because, one, if killing is a thing, then yeah, that's all thing they shouldn't do it either. And two, the absoluteness of it. Um,
Right, the finality of it. Yeah,
yeah, it really takes away the possibility of exoneration, especially when we see how many innocent people
right.
are in the system.
But you see now, and I'm already drawing comparisons to our previous discussion, there are many people on this issue who will say there shouldn't even be any appeals. You're wasting money because you raise the point that it takes so long for all these cases to go on, appeals to go on, and to execute someone actually costs the state more money in the long run than life imprisonment because of all the process. There are a lot of people who will say there shouldn't be any process. Basically, as soon as the case is over, take them out back and shoot them. That reminds me of people who say facts don't matter. They're in my house. I killed them. You know what I mean? That's this extremist, absolutist mentality.
Yeah. I think that, that long-term wait is what is necessary. I mean, I don't think it should be a death penalty, but if you have it, there definitely should be a long-term wait because you should give time to, poke holes in the case.
Right.
I mean, you need to be absolutely sure you're taking someone's life. It's done. There's nothing after it. You can't reverse that decision. So you need time for that. There can be differences. Like in this case here, there's some contaminated evidence. Different parties agree that it shouldn't go to killing. The high number of exonerations that we've seen, the Innocence Project have put out, statistics on how many people are charged, and behind bars on these types of things. So if we're in a system where innocent until proven guilty and we want to have a fair and balanced system, we should take our times on these things. If there is a reasonable doubt is what we're supposed to
Mhm.
be trying to beat that threshold,
Okay,
I think we need
but
to
but
honor
but
that instead of thinking, oh, go
yeah.
ahead.
So just to push back on that, you mentioned innocent to proven guilty, and you mentioned reasonable doubt. I mean, there are people who will say, okay, well, the person was proven guilty, found guilty by a court of law beyond a reasonable doubt. And so, what is there to talk about, right? And we're talking about appeals after the fact. And to
Right.
be fair, I believe this crime happened in 1988. So we're talking a very long time ago here. The person is now being executed for, if it was the person who did it, we don't know for sure. But a very long time has passed.
1998, by the way.
1988, no?
1998.
1898? No,
1998.
1998. Okay, I thought it was 88. Okay, so still a quarter century has passed,
Yeah,
right? And that's a very long time. I mean,
sure.
are we saying that someone should be allowed to appeal for 50 years, 100 years? You know what I mean? Like, at what point, if you're going to cut it off, do you cut it off? Or do you say you should be able to prove your innocence for the rest of your life, even after you've been, let's say, found guilty and your appeals have been dismissed?
Well, I think when there are questions in the case, I don't think there should be a limit. I don't think, there have been questions in the case. If we're
There are
talking
always
about,
questions, though. So, but who decides if there are questions in the case?
well, then there could be things that were not questions in the case. I
You're a
think we're talking
lawyer. You're
about
always going to
killing
put a
someone.
question, right? You're
We're
a
talking
lawyer
about
for someone.
killing
You're going to
someone.
poke 1,000 holes in any case.
Well,
Who
yeah,
decides
but
if that threshold was met, right?
in this case, lack of DNA evidence, there's contamination. Even
Mhm.
the prosecuting officers say they didn't get a fair trial. Um, I think that's enough to say, you know what, we need to back off here.
They
We've
always
got
say we didn't get a fair trial. You know what I mean? Like these
But the
points are always right.
prosecutors say that he didn't get a fair
Oh,
trial.
so
That's a
okay. So you're saying that the burden is on the prosecutor. That's an interesting point, right? So if the prosecutor himself or herself says, "Hold up, this conviction shouldn't stand," then maybe we should look into that.
right. I mean, because it's not unheard of that the original prosecutor had special interest in it, or
Right.
the state at the time
Yeah.
had ulterior motives on it,
Right.
or
It's the
public pressure.
adversarial system, right? The prosecutor is under pressure to win more cases, and
That as well. I don't
they
think that
run for
should.
election. They don't want to lose a high profile case, and all that kind of stuff.
I think that's a problem too, and I think we've talked about that before, in relation to the police,
Mm-hmm.
where I don't think their performance should be based on how many people they put away, how many people they arrest, because then it gives them an incentive to put people away, right? The idea should be to find out the truth, right? And then prosecute them when you get the truth. If at any point, there shouldn't be ego in it. If at any point you find out, okay, wait a minute, my evidence
Mm-hmm.
may not give the right information, you should be allowed to back off. You should back off and you should be penalized
Well,
for it.
okay, but in this particular case, we have the prosecutor now saying that we shouldn't have the execution. It should be life in prison, right? We've got, I believe, the original judge. We've got the victim's family, right? So all these parties are on board.
Right.
Should that end the discussion? I mean, should that be enough? Should the governor or the attorney general or even the state's high court be able to intervene at that point and say, I don't care what you guys say, we're going through with this anyway?
I think it should definitely I think so. I think not that they should come to us and say we're going through it anyway. I think that should be enough to say, okay, we're going to stop this. Maybe there's some things we still need to work out.
Mm-hmm.
I think
So
it sounds
you don't think that the Supreme Court of Missouri in this case should be able to overturn that decision? You think they shouldn't be allowed? They shouldn't have the jurisdiction to even touch it.
I don't think they should be the we're talking about a life here, so I don't think
Yeah.
that's, there's questions. I don't think they should
Right.
rule in that way, is
Right.
what I'm saying.
Okay.
We should go to them for the final judgment, but they should be on board this idea that we're trying to protect life, we're trying to preserve the fairness. And so their ruling should be, okay, there are all of these interests here, and there's all these discrepancies here. Okay, we should definitely stop this. But it seems like there's more of a motivation to want to do it. And that's the issue. The governor wants to execute this guy, right? The not the prosecutor,
Attorney General.
yeah, the attorney general wants to execute this guy. And that is the problem. And the court is supposed to be, or we hope, ideally, they're that unbiased
Well,
and
we
want to
did see
say,
reports that these politicians, right, put pressure, that's what they said in the articles, put pressure on the high court to rule the way it did. Obviously, if you read the decision of the Supreme Court, it's not saying we're ruling this way because we got a phone call from the governor, right? They're saying that they haven't received, they haven't seen, or they haven't considered, or they were never presented, I guess, any evidence showing that the person was innocent, and so there's no reason to stop the execution from going on as scheduled.
right. But I think this is my question is why? Why are they wanting to go for it? I don't think that they're saying we haven't been shown any evidence.
That's what they're saying. That's what the Supreme Court is saying. They're saying that look, this execution was scheduled already. It happened over a quarter century ago. The crime, they've had the quarter century to appeal it. They've exhausted their appeals, or through all the court proceedings that they've had on this, his innocence was never proven. They never were able to show that he was innocent. And so, why, basically, why are we still doing this? This is done. This is a done deal. There's no evidence to exonerate him. And
right.
so,
But the prosecutors have raised concerns over the lack of DNA evidence. So
right.
I think to me that's enough to say, okay, we're not going to murder this guy. You know what I mean? We're not going to kill this guy. It's over.
I don't think there ever should be a death penalty, especially not.
No, I agree.
Like this, we're talking about a state level case here. This is not a military type thing, right? This is for a state crime. I think that life in prison without the possibility of parole should be the maximum available punishment. And I think to me that's the main issue, right? But as an attorney, I guess I started thinking about the process and due process and how things should be contested. I'm not comfortable with the idea of basically anytime there's a question about a case, it has to stop. The punishment has to stop, right? Let's take death penalty off the table, whatever the punishment is. We basically, you know what I mean? Like it gets overturned or it gets stopped, or just based on someone poking a hole in the case, because people will always poke a hole in the case. You have to decide who determined whether that hole is big enough, right? Now, it's an interesting idea to say, well, if the original prosecutor says so, but you know what? Just as they were biased before, they could be biased now too. I mean, is their word gospel? Do they hold the ultimate power over all of the cases that they ever did in their career?
Well, let me be, I don't know if this is the original prosecutor. So let's be clear here. The article that I read said prosecutors have raised concerns, and then the other says the prosecuting office has backed an agreement. So that could be the present day prosecuting office, not the original prosecutor.
Right. For some reason, I thought it was the original prosecutor, but it could be a different.
It could be. It could be. But from what I'm reading on the article that I'm looking at, it doesn't say.
But even if it's a successor, it's still that same office, right? Just a person who's in there now.
Well,
and so
that person
do they have the ability then to just go and stop the punishment from proceeding of every case that their predecessors tried?
I think they should be.
Really? You want to give the prosecutor that much power to stop all of these?
I think we should always be trying to not push for that punishment if there's a question of it, right? If there is a question at all point, if a case that happened 15 years ago is found that maybe that there was some mishandling, I think we should relook at it. I mean, we're talking about people's either their life.
The question again is who decides? Does the court decide that? Because we're saying that we don't think that the state Supreme Court should get to make that decision, right? So who does? The prosecutor unilaterally can make that decision? People on TikTok make that decision? I mean, who decides that?
Who decides that we
That there's enough holes in a case
we
that,
take a look at it again?
yeah, or that it shouldn't,
I think
the
the
punishment
system
shouldn't
should
continue.
be, I think the problem is, I think the system should be geared towards wanting to do that.
Mhm.
And, we've talked about before about how the system is turned a lot more punitive,
Right.
right?
And I was going to make
And
that point. Yeah, no, you're right. When it comes to the death penalty in particular, there's no evidence that it is a deterrent at all, right? It's strictly punitive. It's strictly a form of
right,
retribution, but it
right,
doesn't stop crimes from happening, right? People who are going to commit a capital offense don't stop and think, I might be executed for this, therefore I'm not going to do it. They don't have that mindset, right?
right,
So there's no evidence that it actually stops anyone from committing a crime.
right. Yeah, I think our system should be looking for possibilities to not. Well, look, we already agree we don't think the death penalty should be there, but
Right.
for being able to, not take someone's life away, we want to be absolutely sure. Even life in prison is still your whole life is gone. You only get one.
Yeah.
Like, you need to
Yeah.
be, and if there's any evidence that does come up that there was a mishandling, there was a special interest, or there was false evidence, anything that comes up, I think should be admissible and presentable at any time later, because the ruling would have been made off of false pretenses. And
Yeah, but you could always raise something. I understand we believe
sure,
the facts in this case more because we're seeing these articles and we're more sensitive to that. But you could always raise a question. You could always say they mishandled the evidence. They
sure.
didn't, they weren't given a right to testify. They thought they didn't have. I saw that one myself. Someone came to me once and said, this person is, they should get a new trial. Why? Because their lawyer never told them that they had a right to testify. And the lawyers prevented them from testifying. All right, well, you could always say that, but how are you going to prove that? How are you going to prove that their rights were violated? I mean,
Right.
there's always a hole that you can poke in any case, and still someone has to decide whether your argument has merit or not, right? So
Absolutely.
this is you saying it. If there are holes, okay, but who decides it? Normally, the court would decide it. But if we're saying that the Supreme Court or the High Court of the state should not get to decide it, then who does? Where does the buck stop? Who is the ultimate arbiter of whether there are holes in the case such that another appeal should be granted, or the punishment should stop, or the execution should be halted, or whatever the case is, right? Who decides that? Who should be the ultimate arbiter of that question?
I think it's supposed to be the Supreme Court. It should be the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court's motivation shouldn't be one of punitive. They should be concerned with the fairness. So I think that's what the difference is that they seem to want to make this happen versus want to not have this happen.
Hold on a second. I got a comment here on the IG Live saying they killed my son, 15 years old, in Queens, and the kid was not charged with murder. Wow. I'm really sorry to hear that.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, well, I'm interested on your thoughts on this as well. Who do you think should be the arbiter? I mean, should this be a matter of the courts, the prosecutor? Should the prosecutor have the unilateral ability to make a decision like this? When
Well,
it comes
maybe,
to,
yeah.
yeah, because in
I
this
don't
case,
think they
we're
should.
talking about the execution of Marcellus Williams, where the High Court of the state said that the execution should proceed, even though the prosecutor said no, and the victim's family said no, and I think the original judge said no. I mean, people were saying that this should be a matter of life in prison, and the High Court of the state, it seems at the behest of the governor and attorney general, said continue the execution. So we're trying to
Let
figure
me ask you this.
yeah,
Let
we're
me ask
trying
you
to figure
this.
this all out. Go ahead.
So this is a case from 1998,
Yeah.
right? So let's assume we don't know. There's a different prosecutor in the prosecuting office today, right? The present day prosecutors find that they look at this old case and they're like there's concerns about the lack of DNA evidence. Do you think they should be able to bring this back up, reopen it to test it? They find that maybe there's some discrepancy in one of their old cases. Do you think they should be able to
The
do it?
person was already
They're,
tried.
they're in jail. They've been in jail. This guy's been in jail, but you're in the prosecuting office now. You're going through the old cases here. You look in this and like, wow, this is a little flimsy. This doesn't there's lack of
Oh,
DNA evidence.
I see what you mean. Should the prosecutor be able to like bring a motion to reopen the case?
Right.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So I think that's, that's the idea. And,
But
and I don't know,
but hold on
maybe
a
I'm
second.
wrong.
That doesn't stop. That doesn't automatically undo the punishment, right? They can bring the
But if
case
the
back
case,
up, but the court can find that whatever they're presenting isn't persuasive and say, yeah,
if they bring
you
the case back up,
bring it back up, right? And the court says, look, we appreciate this new evidence or whatever you're presenting to me, but we don't find it compelling, and we believe that the punishment should continue. I think that the court has that right as well.
right. But in that case, in the case of something like this, the death penalty,
Mm-hmm.
should that reopening stop that execution date?
Should it
Now, if
provide?
you're in jail, I'm saying if you're in jail, I'm not saying, okay, well, we're reopening it. They should be let out because we're not sure. We're talking about death at this point. Should that,
think I still think, well, you're talking about the prosecutor doing that, not just a defense lawyer or somebody, right? In a particular prosecutor bringing a motion like that.
in this case, yeah,
Yeah.
prosecutor. I think
I
it's,
think that's probably more compelling than if the defense attorney did. Because if you just
I agree.
like anytime a defense attorney brought a motion to the court that stays the execution, well, they would do that every single time. And again, we
Absolutely.
don't agree that it should be executions in the first place, but we're also interested in a fair system.
Right.
And let's say it's not about the death penalty. Let's say it's about life in prison. Should,
Right.
should the attorney just be able to file a new motion indefinitely to stop the prison
Right.
sentence from happening? I don't think so. I think a court should
Right.
have to say it's warranted here.
Right. And I think that's one of the particular points in this case is that the prosecutor is
Yeah.
raising concerns.
Yeah.
I think to me that carries a lot more weight, like you said, than the defending attorneys, because they're going to want to do that anyway. But the
Right.
prosecutor, the idea that most people have is that they want to win the case. But if they're saying, hey, wait a minute, there's something here, I think the court should take a listen to that and say, okay, well, all right, well, let's hold on here, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't,
It's
let me see, I'm
interesting.
gonna
But
refresh here.
what do you think? Here's the question: what if you have a a, a very political prosecutor? We talk about how the prosecutors are elected, right? So what if you have a prosecutor now who thinks it's going to help their career by getting more people out of prison or by stopping punishments
Sure,
from proceeding,
sure,
and they just start filing motions left and right to undo all of the cases that their predecessor had tried? I mean,
sure.
can that be an issue of, hold up, we're taking the power out of the court's hands and letting the prosecutor do whatever they want?
No, there definitely should be some checks on all of it.
Okay.
Um, yeah. I'm looking here and the news just came up. So they did execute Marcellus Williams. Um, let's see, by lethal injection. So it went through. His death went through. This is from ABC News.
Wow.
Yeah.
That always rubs me the wrong way when I hear that.
Yeah.
State executing. It's, to me, that's murder. The state is committing murder. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. I agree.
And by the way, we have to also express sympathy to the victim of the original crime, right? Because that was also, it seems, a murder victim. So it's not to say that we support one over the other. No, we think that they're both wrong, right? If murder is wrong,
Right.
murder is wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
And in this case, to be clear, the victim's family has backed the agreement to avoid the
Right.
death penalty.
Right. Right. And I think that raises the question too. People often look at it like, I'm going to press charges, right? I'm going to bring charge. Like they think of it as a private person able to go into the court and direct a certain outcome. But
Right.
really, it's up to the prosecutor and the court system. Even the victim's family doesn't get to decide. I mean, we could have a conversation about should that matter, right? If someone is sentenced to death, should the victim's family be able to present a petition to say we don't want them executed, or does that not really matter?
Right. Yeah.
You know, but I mean,
So,
we
and
just said that we think that there should be some kind of check on all of this. It
yeah,
would be the court to provide
yeah,
that check, right? So
yeah.
uh,
The
they did,
motivation is what,
on paper, they did what they were tasked to do. We just,
right,
I think, raise questions about all of this when we
right.
reach an outcome such as this one.
Right, because there are possibilities to have all kinds of different things affecting it. Like you said, political motivations could be there. Um, Media coverage could be issue. The people's careers that rely on this. Well, in this case, the prosecutor agreed that it should be stopped, but in some cases, the prosecutor wants that win. So all those things. And we should also note, I don't think we've said it enough, that um, Williams, the man that was executed, has maintained his innocence this whole time.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's not a good not a good outcome all the way around.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and this was here, I'm reading here, apparently the Republican governor in 2017, Eric Greitens,
Mhm.
granted a reprieve before the scheduled execution, citing DNA testing on the knife, which showed no trace of Williams' DNA. He set up a panel to review the case, but then when Mike Parsons, the current Republican governor, took over, he disbanded the board and pushed for the execution to proceed. So even the former governor thought, yo, we should stop this
Right.
and look more into this. It was when this new governor took over, he said, no, we're going to go ahead and kill this guy.
Right. And see, it's very alarming that a lot of this does seem to be politically motivated, right? They make these political calculations. That goes back to the Kamala discussion as well, to try to draw a bottom line here. But a governor or someone running for governor might make that part of their campaign. I'm going to be tougher on crime. You just watch.
Right.
You know what I mean? And maybe that's
Right.
their platform. And they get in and they're like, look, I can't stop this execution. I need this on my record as governor, right? To show I'm so tough. I killed this guy, and that's going to get me more votes with this set of voters over here or whatever. You know, you're playing
Right.
politics with someone's life, right? And
Yeah,
that's very unsettling. And so you know,
absolutely.
this whole idea even of the governor being able to grant clemency, right? And you always see a last minute request to the governor's office to stop the execution. I don't know,
Yeah.
should we even allow that? I mean, I do like it when governors do that, when they do stop it, right? But this idea of basically the governor is one person, one individual who decides whether someone lives or dies, that's a little shaky to me when you consider the political context of all this.
Right. What about if the governor has the power to stay the execution, but doesn't have the power to push for it to continue?
Push forward for it to continue.
Yeah.
Oh, but how would that work? If they're scheduled to be executed, the governor gets a call. Do they say yes or no? We're going to stop it or not?
Right. What if they have the power to only say, yes, we can stop it, but doesn't have the power to say, no, we're not going to stop it? We leave that to the courts.
So then they don't have any power at all.
Well, they have the power to stop it.
But they can't say no. They can, when asked, they can only say yes. We're stopping it.
Right. That's the only option that they have.
They don't have any power. If it's a yes no question, but the only answer is yes.
The only input that they can put in, if it's on the table, there are different hands that can do different things, right? The court is the ultimate decider for making sure it happens, but the governor also has the like a the golden buzzer to say, hey, we need to stop this, right? He doesn't have the power to say, no, we need to make it happen.
Right, but
He's not a lawyer. He doesn't understand these things, right? He
that's
wasn't
how it
in a
is
case.
now, though, right? That's how it is now. The governor doesn't put someone on death row, but the governor gets a call saying, "Can you please stop it?" Right? Can you grant them
Right.
clemency, stop the execution, and they can say, "Yes, I'm going to stop it," or "No, I'm not going to stop it." But they
But
can't.
he also put things in motion here to make sure this happened. Like he
Well, that's what
disbanded
the
the.
reporting was, that he urged the court, which that's
Right.
inappropriate. If that's true, I don't think
Right.
that, that's, to me, that's crossing the balance of power that we're supposed to have, right? You're supposed to
Right.
have the judicial branch as a check on the executive. That's supposed to have them in collusion, saying we're going to execute this guy. So
Now, there's one other point that, I mean, we've been a little bit long on this, but
yeah,
there's one other point to raise in regards to this governor. And you mentioned it before in the pregame, is that he was from 1993 to 2004, he was the sheriff. He
yeah,
was a
yeah.
sheriff in there. So he comes from the law enforcement background, which um could play into his decision that, yeah, we're not going to stay this execution.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And also that could be part of the politics here, right? He's running for governor. I'm a sheriff. And it'll be interesting to look at his campaign commercials even when he was running, right? I could imagine him in a sheriff's uniform or, you know, presenting himself as being very tough on crime and, crime is up in our state right now, and I'm getting there and make sure that we put these criminals away and and give them the ultimate punishment, send them to their maker, whatever. I can see him campaigning with that kind of rhetoric, and now that he's in office, feeling that he needs to follow up on that.
Right. Absolutely. You know what I'm curious about, and I'm going to look here. Um, because he was the sheriff of Polk County
Mm-hmm.
during the time when this crime occurred. Was that in his county that he was sheriff of?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Does he have any
that,
personal connection with this individual,
right.
Williams? Did he have run-ins with him before? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he
Um,
personally biased?
yeah. So it looks like it might not be so. Um, this was it looks like he was sheriff in, or no, this took place in St. Louis County, but he was sh sheriff in Polk County, which seems to be in a different area.
All right. Well,
But
let's
he might have those connections
right.
in,
Sure. Fellow sheriffs or
anyway.
whatever. So let's put the poll question out now that it seems like this has officially happened. The poll question of the week is: did you think Marcellus Williams should have been spared the death penalty?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would like to hear why as well, right? If possible, is it because you're always against the death penalty? Did you believe he was innocent? Did you have questions about the process, lack of evidence, as you said, perhaps contaminated evidence in this case? I mean, what is your reasoning for answering the way you are?
Right. So, and we did have a poll last week.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up here, the poll last week was about the looming TikTok ban and the fight that's going on there. So the question we asked was, do you think TikTok will be banned in the US? And our results showed. Now remember, we put will, and I
Bill.
made a point to
Yeah.
ask that, to say that this isn't a question of should, but one that is asking will. Do you
Right.
think it will be banned? I think there's a
Right.
distinction here. So the response was 39% yes, 61% said no.
61% said that they believe it will not be banned
Right.
in the US. Okay. I see
Right. So wait.
DJ Willie Trans. What's up, Willie?
Yeah, 61% says they believe it will not be banned. So
Okay, that's interesting. Did we see any comments explaining why people think it won't be? Because it seems like we're pretty late in the game here, and the appeals court, at least currently, looks like it's leaning against TikTok.
right. Well, let's see. Comments here. One of them says it should not be banned, but probably will be. Another one says, as far as being banned, I doubt it. An
Mhm.
interesting lawsuit they are fighting now is not one of free speech, but of the algorithm that directs free speech to certain users. Um,
Say that again. An interesting algorithm of free speech.
yeah, I'm not sure where they're going with this. Let's see. As far as being banned, I doubt it. An interesting lawsuit they are fighting now is not one of free speech, but of the algorithm that directs free speech to certain users.
Oh, I
An
see. I
underage
see. I
boy,
see.
an underage boy died taking a TikTok challenge. Should certain challenges be banned from getting to minor children? I'll be loosely following the case. It seems kind
Well,
of
he seems a little disjointed. I guess they're just kind of giving their thoughts, and it's
right.
not so much a coherent paragraph as much as spitballing, right? Stream of
Right.
consciousness there. But it seemed like they made an interesting point about the distinction between free speech of the user and TikTok's free speech, right? Because TikTok is saying that their free speech is being violated, but there's a question there. Is it TikTok's free speech or is it the people on the site, right? Is it just a platform to give people free speech, but it's not TikTok speaking? Because TikTok is saying that they themselves are being violated, right? Their own speech rights are being violated
Right.
by this platform being taken away in the US.
Right. Let's see. Yeah, other people are just, yeah, I'm not sure, but I suspect it will not be. And then someone, I do think they will force a sale. There's one comment here is I don't get why they won't sell it.
Well, and that's also interesting, right? Because I think we are almost assuming here that they're not going to sell it. And so we're looking at, well, if they don't sell it, will it be banned or will it not be banned? But really, there is another option that they do sell it, in which case it won't be banned. So maybe people who are saying it won't be banned are predicting that they're going to sell it.
Right. Well, TikTok has said they won't sell.
That's what they're saying. But if their hand
That's
is
just saying.
forced, yeah,
Um, I mean, and then there's the other option is yeah, not selling and pulling out of the US market, which is an option. I mean, we just saw Elon Musk pulled Twitter out of Brazil because Brazil regulators had an issue with what he was doing. And instead of correcting it, he said, okay, well, we're just going to cut off Brazil.
mm,
Um, TikTok is still one of the most popular platforms on the planet. So they have that option to completely pull out of the US if they want.
right. But do you don't think that will affect their revenue? My phone just dropped here, guys. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, sure, it will. I mean, got a massive, 100 plus million users in the US. I mean, that's gonna affect their revenue big time. I mean, then you've got the whole TikTok US offices and employees and that type of thing.
Right, right.
So absolutely. But this guy's saying, I don't understand why they wouldn't sell it. And so my counter question would be and was, would you would you sell your massively profitable company just because you were told to? I mean, it's still their company. They still,
Sure.
you
But
know,
what if the calculation is, that was my question, what if the calculation is it won't be so massively popular anymore if we don't sell? We're going to tank, if we're not used, if we're banned from the US, we go down the toilet.
I don't think they will. I think they'll be okay. I think they're already what they're banned in India.
Mm-hmm.
India banned them years ago. This was during the Trump administration when a lot of countries were looking into banning TikTok at the time because of the same concerns. India went ahead and did it. Um, and yeah, they're still operating. And India's got is a much more massive market. But the US is probably I don't know what the numbers are. Um,
Right. Yeah, that would seem to be a very big share of their user base.
so I'm looking here. TikTok users by country. Indonesia is the top with 157 million.
Mm.
United States with 120 million, Brazil with 105, Mexico at 77, Vietnam 65, Pakistan 62,
And the US is
Philippines.
number two.
New US is number two.
Yeah, so that's pretty big. That's pretty
It's
big.
pretty big. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
quite big.
yeah. I can
So
imagine that having a serious effect on their bottom line. And also,
right.
people who spend money, I bet you, are more in the US than in Indonesia.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
All right. Well, we
and
have to keep an
the
eye
other
on that.
pickle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all
All right.
right.
We said we go to the bottom line.
Yeah.
We were thinking earlier about connecting these issues, I guess, not rushing to the extreme. And I think that's a flavor we often have on this one. But we were talking about, with the gun issue, right? Shooting someone in your home, is that something that should automatically be embraced, or should that be fact sensitive? And then we talked about the executions and the court cases. Should we automatically jump to executing someone or administering the punishment, or should we be more deliberate in looking at things from different angles and considering other sides? It seems like we're so polarized, and everything is so digestible or presented to us in this easy to swallow, digestible way that there leaves no room for nuance. There leaves no room even for critical thought, right? And that's a problem when you have to rush to a conclusion, rush to an answer. Like, this is my position. I'm not willing to waver from it or even consider other information, right? It's that extremism, I think, that is rearing its ugly head again. So I think the bottom line will be found somewhere in there. Maybe let's try to push back against some of this extremism and apply more critical thought to things and realize that everything is 1,000% black and white.
Yeah, I think so. And we should be striving for more fairer outcomes.
Yeah,
Even though we know that some of it is idyllic,
yeah,
because of the state of what's happening. Um, but we should be trying to push towards those things.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Right, right. The fact that our politics has gotten so extreme and polarized, I think, spills into these other areas, especially when we see that even, for example, the court system is so heavily politicized. So that should not be really a surprise, but
Right.
it's a dangerous side effect, right? I think it's what we're getting. We're getting what we got, which is this kind of toxic, overly politicized environment where, like you said, everything is so adversarial to the point where the notion of fairness gets lost, right? It's almost an afterthought.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, there could be just a small glimmer. At least I looked at it as a small glimmer.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it was very controversial, is when a lot of establishment Republicans came out to support Kamala Harris against Trump because they are concerned over the direction of the country.
Right.
To me, that's a small glimmer of hope that shows that even opposition can put a bigger picture ahead of their personal uh, their personal stake, you
Right.
know.
Well,
And so,
we'll see what the lasting effect of that is, right? And what
right.
happens forward. But all right. Well, to be continued, to say TBD. Jay, where can people find us?
You can find us on YouTube, on everywhere podcasts are available, Instagram as well. And yeah, check us out, leave some comments, and sometimes I guess on Instagram Live or
Yeah,
TikTok Live.
that's right. That's right. You never know.
All
Well,
right.
as always, we've got work to do. Thank you for joining us. We'll catch you next time.